Pastor Don Wolf, Senior Pastor here at Cornerstone Worship Center in Center-Vestaburg, Michigan, and we're bringing you Walking with the Lord. And today we're going to kind of go into an area where only of the three of us sat here, only one has good knowledge, and it's not perfect either.
That's right.
So we're just going to sit here and just be amazed at what we hear. But anyway, we'll see what happens. The Lord's in control, so we'll just turn it over to Him. And once again, on my far side is Pastor Jennifer. In the middle is my wife, Pastor Ernestine, and I'm here just suffering with these two. This morning, maybe I should back up and say tomorrow we're going to be doing something that we've done before,
Yes.
but not in this way.
Correct.
We're going to be zooming into Pakistan and hold a meeting there. And it's the first time we tried it. Matter of fact, we've only been in communication with them, for about 2 months now or something like that.
Yeah, maybe. Not very long.
Yeah, not very long. And most of the communication has been with Jennifer, because I can sit and talk all day long. So, but when it comes to this thing,
Pushing buttons.
yeah,
Oh, no, he pushes buttons.
yeah, I have very little knowledge. So rather than me get the question, then go and get the answer, which we tried originally,
Right.
and finally I said, this is ignorance on my part. So I just handed it over to her, and so she put it together. But anyway, what took place yesterday, we published it on Facebook.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't believe the messages I got overnight. How come you're not doing this for us? How come you're not good for them? You know, they don't understand that it's
Time.
and really that's the key.
Yeah.
Is it takes time. I don't know how many hours you've put into it, but it's what, been probably 8-10 hours,
Probably.
something like that. And that's just for
And we haven't even had the meeting yet.
right. We haven't had a meeting, and that's just preparation.
And learning.
Yeah, because we're stepping into another door open.
Yeah.
And so we thought today we kind of discuss that and help you who are watching out there, that just because you want it,
Doesn't mean you're gonna get it.
well, that's one way to word it. I was going to be a little more polite.
That's the mom way of saying it.
Right. Just because you want it doesn't mean we snap our fingers and poof,
Right.
it happens. You have to build a relationship. This is the part I like. You have to build a relationship with the person who has the knowledge. And then when the day comes, I look good. No, I like it. But anyway, that's what we're going to do, to talk a little bit about some of the preparation that takes place for something like this to take place. Like this morning, we had a test run.
Yeah.
With them, and we found out that, well, let's not say that there's difficulties, because we don't, our part looked good.
Yeah, we did fine.
Yeah, and it took about 25 minutes for them to connect, so, because it's new for them.
Correct.
And so, fortunately, we decided to have the test run.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, Jennifer and I talked about last evening before I went home, that we would have a test run with our equipment.
Yes.
And I was contacted last night about 10:30, 11, something like that, from them, which had been their early morning.
Right.
Saying that maybe we should have a test run. So I said, well, that's what we intended.
Right.
But then again, I got to look good. I said, now all you got to do is contact Jennifer and set it up. When I got here this morning, she said, oh, by the way, at 8:30, we're going to have her test run. See how easy it is? I'm gonna just ask you to just from your heart about what takes place when you gotta do this.
I get a headache. No, what we're using is Zoom, and I've not done a lot with Zoom. I've done a little bit. I've learned a lot over the last couple months with Zoom. And it works a lot like when you video call somebody on Messenger, or you video call somebody on, it's iChat or whatever Apple uses, FaceTime maybe. But I'll be honest, for me, I get a little anxiety every time we try something new. And
Yeah, so do I.
because I know about this much, and I have to know this much to make it happen. Google becomes my friend very quickly. The programs that we use have wonderful tutorials that you can go through and plug in your question, and you find that you're not the first one to ask that question. So those are, there's still some stumbling blocks, things that I would like to change, but I haven't found that correct button yet, because as you get into it, the menu is, 17 tabs, and each tab has 17 other options, and so it's just a matter of figuring out what we need and what we don't need. I guess the good thing that happened this morning is, one, your camera worked, and two, your microphone worked, so now you shouldn't have any trouble with Anchor Bay.
Yeah,
Just telling you, no trouble.
Because once a month, because I'm on the board for Anchor Bay, we have a Zoom meeting.
Correct.
And the last 2 months, I've had 2 months ago, no picture. They couldn't see me, which may be a big improvement, but they could hear me. Now, last month, they could see me, but they couldn't hear me. So I had to get on the phone, and so those are the things that you can run into. And at that time, you couldn't correct what.
Well, and I wasn't here
Right.
at that time, and so since then, I've been able to rearrange my schedule so I can be here on the days that you have Zoom meetings, which tend to change more frequently than I thought they did.
Yes.
But that's okay. We just kind of roll with that. But my understanding from what Pakistan is going to do, they are going to use a laptop and then project it onto a larger television screen.
Probably a sheet or something.
Or something,
like that.
yeah. And they're going to have several people in their home. We did realize and learn this week that they don't necessarily have a church.
Right.
They have an old building here, they have street corners there, they have homes, and then they will have an interpreter also. I did find within Zoom, and I think you and I talked about it, where there's a translator option within Zoom, and they can translate into the standard Pakistani language. And I'm not going to pronounce it because I know it's wrong because it doesn't sound right when you say it, but then before we went on live, we learned that not everybody in Pakistan speaks that language as their primary language. So their interpreter may be somebody that speaks what do I want to say, a tribal dialect or something.
Possibly, they'll be using the national language simply because they said they were inviting people from different parts
True.
of Pakistan.
Yeah.
And as a general rule, your tribal language is in a certain area. And we did meet the translator.
Yes.
3 or 4 days ago. I lost track of time. On a phone, what do you call that?
It was a video chat with Messenger.
Right, and he spoke pretty good English.
Yes.
And I think he would probably make a good translator. And let me just, on translators for a moment. whenever you have to go through a translator, you're only as good as the translator.
Yeah.
And I learned by going overseas, Mexico, and all the other things. It's tough sometimes. Most of the time, we were very fortunate that we had good translators. And, but that's when you're face to face.
Yeah.
And this, and I found out yesterday, we're 9,000 miles away. And so that's a long ways distance. We're here, they're there. However, if I can just be rude for a minute, last evening I got a message from a fellow I don't know in Kenya. And he says, how come you can do this for them and can't do it for me? And I wrote back to him and says, well, first of all, you haven't asked. It's that simple.
Yeah.
You haven't asked. So he came back and said, well, when are you going to do it? I said, we're going to do it when we get to know you. You had to, it's just like serving God. And this is one of the things I'm going to be talking about tomorrow because of who we're speaking to. We're not going to be talking about religion.
Right.
Religion will take you to hell, and I won't be saying that tomorrow.
That's probably a good thing.
Yeah, right. Well, we're going to be talking about a personal relationship with God. And that's what Christianity is, a personal relationship.
Yeah.
And in order for us to get together with this electronic system, we had to build relationships. And that takes time. And so people got to understand it isn't just something we can turn a switch and happen. I mean, we can do that, but can we always serving God?
Right.
And
What
so,
do they get?
yeah, what they get. First of all, I mean, I communicated with this pastor and several times, and I'm finally asking, what do you need? And he said, well, actually what we need is what is a function of being a Christian, or words to that effect. Well, that's a pretty good challenge. And so that's what I hope to, no way can I cover it unless we talk for several days. But I can lay down certain guidelines for them. And so that's building relationships. And so anyway.
Well, you know, and as you were saying that, the other part of it is it's not just one-sided. We can't just flip a switch and start preaching. We do that every Sunday morning for our services. We just do that and we broadcast on Facebook. But in order for Zoom to work, the other end has to have a good internet connection, and they have to have the video and the
Know-how.
and all of that on their end too. It's not as simple as with Facebook you have Messenger and you're just typing back and forth, and that's a very simple communication and chatting.
You say that.
But once you add the video in, that takes so much more internet power, if you will. So we not only have to have a strong internet signal here, which we sometimes struggle with.
Yes.
They have to have one on their end. And if you're out in like the remote areas of Africa or those kinds of things, you may not have that. And so Zoom may not work for you.
Yes.
And it may just be, and I know we've done this with, I think we've done it with Benson before, where I just videotaped you preaching a sermon and we sent it to him through Dropbox, which is another platform. But and then he just played it there. And so I mean there's different options depending on where you are and what you have for a service and what we have. You know, so it's more about yes, you have to build relationships with those people, but you've got to have compatibility when it comes to electronic stuff too.
Yeah, now 3 or 4 times we've done Zoom meetings in Uganda. Now, one thing that I find, or at least I think it's a problem we run into, we operate on a very fast system. Not all your systems overseas, especially when you get into the countryside,
Yes,
operate on the same speed,
right,
and they just don't talk to each other.
yeah, and there's it's hard because sometimes, not only do you have the language barrier, but you have that delay in the
Pause.
internet and the pause, and we see it just in our everyday stuff here, that sometimes the lips don't always match up with the words that you hear.
That may be good.
So, and I had that when I did a Zoom with Benson this last winter, and his connection was not good, and so I was repeating myself and then waiting for him to interpret. And I know that a lot of people overseas, I don't know how to say this, are used to listening to an interpreter, used to getting their messages through an interpreter. But to me, it lost everything that I was trying to say.
Oh,
Yeah.
I understand
It
what
just,
you're
I felt like
saying.
I was just saying words, and, and I know that, I got a response back from Benson after the fact, and the group that I was speaking with, thanked me, and they were encouraged, and, but you walk away sometimes, did I get across what God wanted me to?
Yeah, that's interesting. Felix,
Mhm.
one time he had listened to one of my messages on Sunday, and apparently that Sunday I got a little animated. Is that the right word?
Animated,
Animated, that word.
yes.
And he said, I want you to know I enjoy your message. How come you're never that way when you're here in Africa? And I wrote back and said, it's very simple. We go through an interpreter.
Yeah.
And that loses, or at least it does me, loses my concentration or what I'm feeling or something.
Because once that Holy Spirit starts to move and you just go, and then you stop, because you have to wait for somebody else to say it, it's lost.
Right.
Another problem sometimes you have is, their knowledge of English.
Oh, yes.
And ours is, sometimes we use slang words they
Yes.
don't understand, and then they, when they stop and what was that, or.
Quick story, I was in Mexico, and they had a tremendous interpreter down there. Matter of fact, he was with the mob in Milwaukee. He got saved, went back home, and quite an individual. And I was preaching one Sunday morning, and he was interpreting. He was the type of guy, if you made a step, he made a step. I mean, he just really, he get excited, and she got excited. He just was good. And he would say, I would say something, then I'd wait for him. And it's a general rule when they interpret in Spanish, it's a little bit longer than what, you may use 5 or 6 words, but it takes them a minute to interpret it. And all of a sudden, I said something, and he gave me 2 words, picture. And I'm waiting. I'm standing there, and I'm waiting. And he's looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and then pretty soon he says, well, you go on. And I said, but are you done? He said, we don't always have to talk longer than you do. And of course, the congregation just went.
Right? That's funny.
It is funny.
Yeah.
But it's very, not that I mind going to the interpreter, but it's much easier if you got one who's very good at it.
It takes a little bit of practice too.
Yeah, and Vincent, he is an
He's
excellent interpreter.
And I think that the only trouble we had was the internet connection.
Yeah.
So it was, what he was hearing from me was broken, and I wasn't sure when he was done, and And then, again, it was my first time using an interpreter, so
Yeah.
that was new to me too, so. Well, then we had that one time when you guys were doing a conference, I think with Felix,
Mhm.
but you had to go through 2 interpreters.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
That was,
It was bad.
that was an adventure, yes.
Yes, one time I had 3,
Oh, wow.
and that was, first of all, it took half a day.
You got lost. Where was I?
Yeah,
Yeah.
really. And, I don't think I ever wanna attempt that, again.
Mm-hmm.
But we had 3 dialects there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, there's limitations, and, it just, and I think that's what not everybody understands, is it takes time to figure out, okay, what are those limitations on both sides?
Mhm.
And then, how do we get beyond that? How do we fix that so we can do it? We did the Zoom with Felix on a Sunday morning, and he could hear us. We had no way of hearing him because of our setup here, and he wanted to play a video of the children singing, but because we couldn't hear them, it was, so there were some limitations, but they were still able to watch
Mhm.
that way, and it was, pretty close to after that we started streaming every week on Facebook.
Yeah, I had a dream last night. So it had to be from God. You see that space above the lights?
Yes.
Is it possible for us to get a screen up there with the camera so that we can zoom through that? In other words, if we was zooming with another church, we could, at least this part, could see what's happening in that church.
Possibly.
I have to check
Okay,
it out.
let me add it to my.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
no.
something to think about.
Well, and I know people Zoom,
Mhm.
so there's gotta be a way to do it. Companies Zoom back and forth all the time with meetings, and it's not just one-on-one, it's
Right.
conferences. So, there's a way to do it, we just gotta figure it out.
Yeah, because we got 2 other TVs. We got the one in my office and we got the one in the fellowship hall.
Right.
And, we could mount it up there, and that would be neat. I mean, even like what we're gonna do tomorrow, it would be a much better setting
Oh, yeah,
if we was here at the podium and given the message and we could see. them.
because you wouldn't have to clean your office.
Us for one, cut that part out.
Oh, goodness.
How much more?
You got about 6 minutes.
6 minutes.
Mhm.
Well, what do you want to add to it?
I guess, we're not opposed to Zooming with people. We're not opposed to, you can do it through Facebook Messenger. And there's other platforms. Just, I guess, communicate what you want. And don't just say, well, how come you're not doing it for us? Well, because we don't know what your needs are. And we don't know what the technology needs are on your end. And, like I said, you can't just flip a switch.
Yeah.
It'd be nice sometimes if we could just flip a switch, but, you just can't.
Yeah.
And,
It's all about building the relationship.
yeah, and and lots of times if it's new, like what you're proposing, I will have to do some research.
Oh, yes.
And I can guarantee I will probably call my son and say, hey,
Yeah.
mom needs to know.
Yeah,
Kind of thing.
that's fine.
So,
I just think it would be, we could, now she will get shot. There's even the possibility, if something like that works well, then you put 2 more for the back part of the church can see.
yeah,
And wouldn't necessarily have cameras for them to see, but you can see.
so they could see the other side.
Right.
Right, yeah.
So these are the type of things that we could look at. And, because I'm gonna say this, and it hurts me to say it. Sunday, I become 89 years old. And this beautiful body just the thought of getting on an airplane and sitting like this for 20 hours just doesn't go anymore. As much as I want to travel, I want to go to different, meet all of you people, because I've done it so much. I can't tell you how many countries I've been in, but I just cannot do it anymore. But we can still get the word out through this media.
Yeah.
But it takes patience.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want Jennifer to end up in a loony bin.
Have you seen the people I hang out with? That might happen anyway.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry, girls.
So, you know, and I gotta rely on her, because I am ignorant when it comes to these, I'm ignorant in other areas, but I'm ignorant in this area. And I have to rely on her. And sometimes I get impatient with her. You know, why haven't you got it done? Well,
Takes time.
takes time.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta build relations.
Yes. Yeah.
So, you got anything you wanna add?
No, I think you guys covered it fairly good.
She just sat here and looked
Yeah,
pretty.
yeah. And I went over and told her what was gonna have a discussion. I says, it'll probably be 99% Jennifer, because she is our communicator. Matter of fact, I'm gonna start calling you, director of our communication department. So.
Our department of one.
Yeah. We gotta increase it somehow.
It's kind of like the office manager of one.
Yeah. Right. That way, we can say, hey, we got a department.
Makes two.
Yeah. But anyway, we thank you for watching, and we just ask that you continue to serve God. And always God wants to open doors for you. Let him open them, and then walk through them and see what you got to do. So once again, we say thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next week.